Hi everyone, this is the MrpTech Podcast, episode 68. My name is Matt, and this is the weekly podcast discussing everyday tech for everyday people. Thanks again for tuning in this week. As mentioned last week in episode 67, I am in the process of doing a giveaway for all of our listeners here on this show. And basically, Podnuts has provided me a copy of Larry Bushy's book on Ubuntu Mate. It is the guide for computer users upgrading from Windows or OS X. If you'd like the chance to get that copy for free, I'll send it to you for free. Basically, just want you to listen to one of my shows and write me a review, some thoughts on previous episodes or this episode. And you can do that by emailing me mrptechreviews@gmail.com, or just go over to my website mrptechreviews.com and hit the contact form and just give me some feedback on a show. Give me some thoughts that you have on one of my last few episodes or this episode in particular. So first of all, this last week, I just mentioned the Door-to-Door Geek sending me the Ubuntu Mate book written by Larry Bushy. This last week, I spent some time and I read through that particular book regarding Ubuntu Mate. Just has been published recently, and basically, I'm going to give you my thoughts on it right now. So if you are relatively new to Linux, just started experimenting with Linux, not really sure where to go, I would recommend this book for anybody who isn't really familiar with the Ubuntu Mate project. This book, I think, is a great resource guide for anybody wanting to learn about Ubuntu Mate, its applications, what you can do with it, how to install it, where to get support in the Ubuntu Mate community, and basically just shows you all the bells and whistles that come with the Ubuntu Mate desktop. And I think it's something that's really important because I don't think anything existed prior to this that would get information out in a compelling way for anybody wanting to have a written format to learn about Linux or Ubuntu Mate in general. So I think as I read through this, it was fairly step-by-step, an approach to and an objective look at Ubuntu Mate. It gives you, I believe it's written in Creative Commons, which is awesome. And it's really meant to spark an interest in Linux, which is something that I think is really important for a lot of people out there. I'm going to get to that aspect of it in just a little bit. Now, without getting into every single topic of the book, I just want to talk about a few things that I thought were really handy that I didn't actually expect to see in the book. One of the things that I really liked, there was several pages dedicated to all of the keyboard shortcuts. Now, I know I've seen some you can access these in Ubuntu Mate settings, but just having a reference guide that gives you all the different keyboard shortcuts, I thought was a really nice addition to this book. I like the book so much, actually, that I actually went and purchased a digital copy so that I could read it on the go. And I wanted to just have a copy kind of for myself to keep as a reference guide. It talks about all the different types of software that come pre-installed. Many things that we're familiar with. There's a few things in there that I did not know about. And I was so intrigued kind of by the book that and that with a few other things that have happened this week that I really wanted to take a look at Ubuntu Mate again, because it has been quite a while since I have taken a glance at it and see what it has to offer. So along with being a reference guide, not only does this book talk about things like keyboard shortcuts, but also it gives you a sort of guide to some of the best software that's out there on Linux, in my opinion. Many of which come pre-installed in Ubuntu Mate. It talks a little bit about firewalls and backing up your system, as well as the built-in security of Linux. and the software centers that are built in with Ubuntu Mate, where you can get additional software. This book goes through all the different user interfaces that come within Ubuntu Mate Tweak. I'm going to talk a little bit about those as I get into an Ubuntu Mate review in just a few minutes. For those of you out there who haven't got this book yet, one of the things that I mentioned last week is that Larry Bushy has, the author of the book, has helped me out in the past as I sent emails to him on my journey learning Linux over the last several years. And if you're in that boat where you are just sort of starting out in Linux, one of the first things that I did when I first started learning how to use Linux, I actually came across an Ubuntu book. This was way back, probably an Ubuntu 9.04 or 9.10, somewhere in that area. And I actually came across an Ubuntu book. It was about 3 inches thick, and I read it cover to cover during one summer, just as when I had some free time, and a lot of really interesting facts in that book. But a lot of it was overwhelming. There was too much information in the book, and for a first-time learner, someone who was just learning about Linux, many of the concepts I just didn't understand at that point in time. The difference between that particular Ubuntu book and Larry Bushy's book is Larry's book is very short and concise, but at the same time, it does a great job explaining all the different aspects as you move along through the book. And it really hits bullet points of everything that you need to know, without being overwhelming to somebody who is new to Linux. That's one of the things that I really caught on as this book went on, really highlighting all of the positive things about Ubuntu Mate, and making it really accessible to everyone. And that's what Linux is all about. It's really accessible to everyone. Doesn't matter what language or physical ability that you have. And basically, whether you're just a Linux user or Ubuntu user, or someone who likes to use the Mate desktop, this book might be something for you to check out and really get a little better perspective of all the things that this particular operating system has to offer. So last week, when I received this book in the mail, I was really excited to check it out. A couple of things happened last week in sort of my home life, home world, whatever you want to call it, where, well, I'll just jump right into it. So a friend of mine was given a computer that had Windows 7 on it, and it was an all-in-one computer. I believe it was an HP, but I can't recall off the top of my head. All-in-one computer from the late Vista days, and Vista, of course, wasn't working well on it. And one of the things that he asked me was, would Linux work on this computer? Because he wanted to try out to see if there was if the touchscreen on it was working and that type of thing. And I said, I'm very sure Linux would work on this. I'm not sure about how the touchscreen interface would work, but my first go-to, just to get Linux installed on this older computer, I would check out Ubuntu Mate. And so I copied a flash drive and gave him the flash drive for him to try out to see if it would work. And so just without even thinking much of it, Ubuntu Mate was my first my first recommendation. Not necessarily not for the touchscreen aspect of it, but just getting a stable Linux operating system installed on that computer, and just to see how well it would run. And later on that week, I was sort of browsing Facebook, and a guy that I went to college with, I didn't really know all that well, sort of was another musician in the school of music that I was going to in the early 2000s. And he was a really nice guy, and I saw a post of his saying he wanted to build a Hackintosh on an old Acer laptop, and he just wanted to play around. And I couldn't resist commenting on that. Have you ever tried Linux first? Because I think you would have a more stable experience, trying something like Linux over building a Hackintosh. And I know everybody wants that Mac experience. But in my experience, building Hackintoshes, they never seem to work right, and you run into all sorts of problems. And so I recommended Ubuntu Mate again and for him. And this seems to be a running theme over the last few weeks. And so what I decided to do myself is I wanted to take a look at Ubuntu Mate 17.10 or 17.10, and basically really look and see what the next release of Ubuntu Mate, this is the beta 1 that I looked at. And I know the betas aren't really recommended for most people, but I really just wanted to take Ubuntu Mate for a spin again and see what it was all about. And one of the things that I came across was that the Ubuntu Mate community was actually given a survey about changing the default UI. And that's one of my favorite things about Ubuntu Mate is the project seems to really care about the community that it has. It uses the donations that it gets to continually improve not only their experience on their operating system, but as well as passing it forward, passing it on, and really supporting the projects that help build Ubuntu Mate. I do not know Martin Wimpress myself personally, but I do know I from hearing him talk about Ubuntu Mate and its sort of origin story, that he definitely has a passion for doing this and has done an incredible job building Ubuntu Mate from a non-supported system all the way up now to being an official Ubuntu flavor. And just looking at their community and seeing what it is that they want, providing things in Ubuntu Mate tweak, such as the Redmond UI or the Cupertino UI, the Mutiny UI. These are all different looks of the Mate desktop, and always sort of falling back on the traditional Mate desktop, the old GNOME 2 kind of feel. And they've ultimately decided to leave the default desktop alone. I think it's a good idea for now. But I just really like the fact that they, took the time to poll the community and see what it was that they really wanted. Another thing that I'm really liking about 17.10 is the global menu support. Just trying it in the first few minutes seems to be much more improved over the last few releases of Ubuntu Mate. Just really makes for a better experience overall as you're trying to get work done. Another thing that I'm sort of excited about, I haven't had much time to go over it, is the heads-up display. Similar to if you ever use the Unity desktop, using the Alt button brings up the HUD where you can quickly search for what you're looking for. I'm really excited that Ubuntu Mate is implementing the heads-up display, so you can pretty much run whatever you'd like from a keyboard, and less time working with a mouse. I really like that being improved in Ubuntu Mate 17.10. Along with other improvements I think are really coming along in Ubuntu Mate, things like network improvements, Bluetooth improvements, anything. I've never really had a problem with networking with Ubuntu Mate. I have with the standard release of Ubuntu, but it seems like over the last few releases that all the different indicators on the top menu seem to be now fully compatible with Mate, whether it's Bluetooth or messages or the sound or the session that you're using. And it really seems like in my opinion, that just about everything has been improved on since I didn't try out Ubuntu 17.04, Ubuntu Mate 17.04. So it's been quite a while since I looked at it, and definitely has come a long way. Everything from the login screen being much more polished, all the way through the littlest theme or setting or anything that they can add to make it more stable. And I really think that Ubuntu tweak, Mate tweak, really does a whole lot for keeping it interesting. If you like to change things up or like to customize things a little bit differently, the Mate tweak menu is really where it's at. And I really enjoy that comes pre-installed. You don't have to go look for it. And one of my favorite things about Ubuntu Mate, believe it or not, is something that's very simple. From a perspective of someone who likes visual appeal, so to speak. When you get a new computer, if you buy a new Mac, it's all in the presentation. And when you first turn on a Mac, you're given a video, a welcome video that shows up. Many times when you purchase a new Windows PC, it's something very similar. And what I just like the fact that when you first install Ubuntu Mate, you're given a welcome screen with lots of information on it, where you can go and start downloading new software, and get more information on the project. And that Ubuntu Mate welcome screen has been around for a little while now, and I really just like the fact that is still there. It just makes it look like a more professional product. And just taking the time to do that. I know they're building the new software boutique. It's not quite ready yet, but I hope that progress continues, and that welcome screen it really just shows off what Ubuntu Mate has to offer for those that are starting for the first time. And those like me who have installed it in the past, and you're used to seeing that menu, you might not want to see it, but it may sort of get in the way from you starting for the first time on your OS or something like that. But I personally, I just like, I probably shouldn't even have said that. I guess it doesn't mean that it gets in the way. What I mean is, it's just something that you have to X out or close out if you're used to installing Mate on lots of things. But in my opinion, I think it's great. I really think that the welcome menu adds to the overall polish of the product, and really makes it look like you're using professional software. And as far as I'm concerned, that's exactly what Ubuntu Mate is. It is very professional looking from top to bottom, and it really has improved over the last several releases. In fact, one of the things that I have thought of over the last few weeks, if you've been listening to the last few episodes, I've been looking for a Raspberry Pi project, and I had mentioned I came across a Raspberry Pi 2. It's not the most recent Raspberry Pi that has been released, but I was looking for a Raspberry Pi project, and I didn't really know what to get into. I know you can do a million different things a million different ways with Raspberry Pis, but I think for a first project with a Raspberry Pi, I think because I'm into Ubuntu Mate this week, I think I'm going to take the Ubuntu Mate spin for the Raspberry Pi, and just give it a run and see what it can do on a low-powered ARM device, and just see what I can do with it, just to kind of get into my first Raspberry Pi project. And I may not leave it on there forever, but at least it gets me using the Raspberry Pi a little bit and see what it can do, and hopefully come up with some ideas in the future for other things. So Ubuntu Mate has really kind of inspired me this week. I've recommended it twice this week for two different situations. I have read Larry Bush's book, sort of inspiring me a little bit more to take a look at Ubuntu Mate again. It had been a while. And boy, what an awesome project it is. I'm really glad to see that this project has been successful, and I wish them nothing but more success in the future, because anytime that I'm looking for something for someone else, it just seems like Ubuntu Mate is the way to go on most things. I'm someone that runs Antergos on my Linux machine for the most part. I like the bleeding edge software, but when it comes to an LTS, it's either Ubuntu or Ubuntu Mate, and more it seems like I'm recommending the Mate desktop. And so, with that said, I'm going to wrap it up here. But again, if you'd like a copy of Larry Bushy's new book, and you want a chance to kind of win it from this podcast, just send me a review on one of the last few episodes of this show. You can talk about your thoughts on Ubuntu Mate, or anything else we've talked about, OBS and a few other things over the last few weeks. Give me your thoughts. It doesn't have to be a review on the show. Just give me your thoughts on anything we've talked about. I'll put it here on the show. And at the end of September, I'm going to do the giveaway for Larry Bushy's new book. And anybody who writes in can become on the list for the free giveaway. So I will give away one book, and we'll see who gets it. But I just have to need to get some feedback from all of you in order to do that. So that's going to wrap things up this week. We'll be back with another episode next week. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope you have a great week, and we will see you next time.